everyone. Today I'm going to be coloring this little fairy with these cute little curly pigtails from my digital set, Fairy Fun Valentines. So if you would like to color along with me, you can find that in my shop, and I will leave the link down below. It also comes with another fairy with a straighter hair and a ponytail, and a little bunny and squirrel. So for this video today, I enlarged it a little bit. I've never colored one of the fairies this size before, but I thought for the video it would be easier for you to see and for me to see if I made it bigger. Because to be honest, I don't see very well, and I usually color with my face 2 or 3 inches from the paper. So this way it's a little bigger, and hopefully you can see it better, and I can too. So this fairy, I'm going to make her kind of a medium to darker skin tone, and I use basically the same pencils no matter what skin tone I'm doing. I vary just a little between them, but mostly the difference in the skin color comes from the pressure you use and the amount of each color that you use when you're coloring. So starting out, I was using light umber, which is what I always start with no matter what color I'm doing skin. I always put a very, very light layer of light umber on the paper first. And then I like to switch to doing my shadows in sienna brown. Again, a very, very light layer with very little pressure, and try to do kind of small circles. You don't want to do streaks because those will be hard to blend out later. Also, your skin is just going to look much smoother and more realistic, and you'll be able to get your shadows and highlights better if you do just little bits at a time. So just keep working the shadow areas that you feel like would need shadow. Very lightly, of course, because we're doing layers. Under the dress and down the front of the legs, I feel like would have more shadow than the back side of her legs. So I'm going to make the shadow area a little heavier on the front side of her legs than on the back. Okay, now I'm going to just go lightly over all of the areas that I've previously colored with the peach, just to warm the skin up just a little bit and give it a nice glow. And that would be PC 939. I also want to point out that this is the first time that I'm putting any color on the cheeks. Previously, when I was coloring with the skin tone, like the tanner, browner colors, I avoided the cheeks because if you put the brown on the cheeks first and you're wanting them to be cute little rosy cheeks, the color can get kind of muddy. So don't do that. Just kind of skip around the cheeks when you're doing the first layers of the skin tone so that they'll be nice and bright, clear pink. Okay, now I'm going to take the henna, which is number PC 1031, And I'm just going to use this to do the shadow area of the cheeks because it's kind of a dark rose color. And just blend, I'm going to blend it out just a very little bit. And now I'm going to take the color that's just called pink. It's PC929, and I'm going to go ahead and fill those cheeks, feathering it out and getting lighter as I come in towards the face and up towards the eyes. Now I'm going to use the dark brown. And I'm going to go right along the hairline and just feather it out down the side of the face a very little bit. Not doing a very, very thick line. Just, I want to get a lot of dramatic shadows in right around the hairline. I'm also going to take the dark brown and add in a few more of the darker shadow areas where I want the shadows to be just a little darker than the other shadows. This little triangular area right at the top of the foot is where I like to add just a little bit more of a shadow to give it a little more shape and just not really realistic. Of course, it's not a realistic drawing, but you know what I mean. I think it gives it more character and does give it a more realistic feel. Okay, I'm just going to go back with the sienna brown again, and I know that maybe I seem crazy just going back and forth, but I feel like if you didn't go and do those really soft, thin layers, that you would end up with sort of bands of color that didn't blend together well. So I'm just going to continue doing that and going back around everywhere I've already gone before until I get them just like I want. And here across the top of the nose, I'm just going to do a little soft shadow to create a little more shape there. When I drew these fairies, in my mind, I was picturing them being very doll-like and sweet, kind of like a vintage strawberry shortcake doll that maybe I played with when I was a child, or a Waldorf doll. Feeling the nostalgia of that is something that just makes me happy. So I like to draw in those kind of styles, and so their faces are not very angular. They're supposed to be have very soft features, and that is why I was doing the shading like that, just in that depression between the eyes, because they have little button noses, not really the type where you would make a bridge. Of course, with your fairies that you're coloring, you can do it however you want, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I was just kind of explaining my process and my my ideas when I illustrated these fairies. When I was a little girl, I just loved my strawberry shortcake dolls. So if you look at vintage strawberry shortcake dolls, you can kind of see where I pulled some inspiration from there, and also from the little soft Waldorf dolls, and the felt plushies. I've made my little girl a few little felt plush dolls, and I kind of feel like that's where my inspiration came from. Just features that are very soft and doll-like. Also with the little legs and feet and the hands. Maybe you can tell I kind of got inspiration from little felt dolls because I love them. They make me feel happy. So I kind of like drawing in those sort of styles a lot of times. Okay, now I'm just kind of pulling all the colors together again, going over it with this beige. And this is where maybe if I were planning to do a lighter skin tone, I would switch to a cream or an eggshell or maybe even white toward the center of the vase. But since she's a medium skin tone, we're not going to do anything that light. Maybe towards the end, just a few in the highlight areas with some white to really make the highlights pop. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and go back over everything with the beige to help with the blending and colors together. And to get enough pigment on there so that when we do the mineral spirits blending, they'll really come together nicely. So we're getting ready to do that, and you'll need a brush that's going to fit the area pretty closely so that you won't have streaking with a smaller brush, or a brush that's too big that you can't stay within the lines well, because you could have bleeding outside the lines if your brush is too big or you weren't careful. And with the blending with the mineral spirits, you just want to use your own judgment in the way that you want to go. You don't want to just go back and forth, like willy-nilly all over it, because that might not be very pretty. As you can see, I'm not pulling the skin tone down into the cheek area. Instead, I'm going to feather the cheeks out in the direction of the rest of the skin, because the mineral spirits does move the pigment around a little bit, so you just want to be aware of that. So I'm probably going to switch to a smaller brush to do the arms and legs. And I think until I'm ready to do the hair, I'm going to turn some music on, a little background music, so we're not just in the silence. Because I'm just going to be repeating these steps until I get the skin exactly as I want. And you'll notice that it's looking darker right now. The mineral spirits does kind of intensify the colors, but it will get just a little lighter as it dries too. So we're just going to keep on with the layers until we've built up the shadows and highlights and everything just the way we want it. And I'll be back with you when it's time to do the hair. did want to mention about the nose. I almost forgot about it. I always use the same colors that I use on the cheeks. So I just fill in with the lighter cheek color and then go just underneath the little C-shaped curve at the bottom with the henna. And then just fill in with the cheek color, see? And then sometimes I'll do a slight little shadow at the underneath side of the nose too on the skin. But it's just a tiny little thing, so it doesn't take much color to get there. And then I also like to add a little bit of highlight on the eyelids just to make the eyes pop a little and give them a little life and character. Also go just a little underneath the eyelid with a little bit of shadow. It's very subtle, but I think it makes a difference in giving the eyes like a happy look. Okay, now it's time to do the hair, and this is where we really get to have some fun and go a little bit crazy. I know that especially with this curly hair, it can seem a little overwhelming, even for me. And sometimes I start with it and I think, oh, this is not looking right, but just keep going, and in the end, it will turn out pretty good, I think. So we're gonna stick with some darker colors, especially in the areas that would have shadow, like, you know, where the hair is bunched together at the hair bows and underneath the hair bows. And I decided with this fairy first that I was going to stick with black and dark gray, but I also wanted to throw in a little bit of subtle colors. So my first idea was to start with some black cherry and black grape and maybe some dark indigo. But as I get going, you'll see I start adding more colors. So I'll try to list the colors below, but mainly if you're trying to follow along with me and color as I color, just pick a lighter and darker shade of colors that you like. So I used, for instance, a dark teal color and then a lighter teal color. And then I threw in a little bit of magenta. And I used a darker and lighter shade of blue, just little bits here and there. But the important thing to remember is you use the lighter colors in the more highlight areas and use the darker colors in the shadow areas. But you also, because hair has depth, you know, it's not just flat, so you also need to throw a little bit of the dark and light colors into, for instance, the dark colors into the areas that are mostly highlights, because hair has a lot of texture and depth and you want to look like it has that depth. So you add in just a few bits of dark curls as well. So if you notice, instead of doing straight lines or wavy lines, when I'm doing the curly hair, I like to just do little curly cues. Just little random bits of curls. Here, see, instead of using the black in the tips of the hair, I've switched to a kind of darkish gray. So just keep going back and forth with the gray and the black for a while, kind of getting an idea of where you want the darker areas and lighter areas to be. And the part that is slicked back, just make waves, not curly cues. I have in the illustration a few little loose hairs that have popped out. I always think that's kind of fun, and even we'll go back and add a few in with my colored pencils when I'm coloring. So for now, I'm just gonna switch to some music while I fill in the hair. Okay, so now I'm about to start switching to using some colors, and this is where it gets fun for you and it's fun for me. This one is black cherry, and it's kind of a burgundy color. So if you just wanted to stick with some subtle highlights of color, then these blackish colors are good to use. But in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and get a little crazier and switch to some more colorful colors. So just keep going. Hair takes some time. You can't rush through it, you know, if you want it to look detailed. You have to take some time. So I'm just going to continue with doing all the colors. And because black cherry is a darker color, I'm also using it in some shadowed areas all over the hair. Okay, so we're just going to keep going at it and adding more colors in. And even at the end, we'll add in some white in some highlight areas. And then I will do a part 2 for you of coloring in the dress and the wings and the wand. So if you get to the end of this video, make sure to check out the second one so you can color in your dress as well. I have decided to stop at this point and use some mineral spirits to kind of diffuse everything I've done so far, because this will soften the white in the background on the paper so that it won't be as hard to cover it and have it not be so stark white underneath the rest of the pencil coloring. And once the mineral spirits has dried, then I'll just continue on with more colors and layering in more black areas until I get it like I want it. And actually, if you were short on time or just didn't enjoy spending that much time on the hair, you could stop at this point and it doesn't look bad. It's pretty good. But I like to add a little more texture and detail, so I'm going to keep going. Okay guys, so we have finished coloring the skin and hair and reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to continue watching the next video where I'll do the dress. Thanks, bye!